Hello, everyone, and welcome to our 100th ever Lunch and Learn. Are you excited? I'm excited. All right, so I'm super happy to have Lynda and Mark here with me today. Lynda is our executive director, my boss, and then Mark Kateli is the president of the Florida Native Plant Society. And they're here. I called it In the Weeds with Lynda and Mark because we're just going to be talking.
In the weeds.
We're just talking about like the nuts and bolts of FNPS. Why are we doing what we do? How do we do what we do? And Lynda has beautiful PowerPoint. So before we
yes, she does.
Yeah. So before we get started, I want to announce that conference registration will be opening on February 22nd. So please save the date. We have the virtual conference is happening first. It's happening from April 28th through April 30th. So the last weekend in April, kicking off with a game night on Friday with Mark and me. Maybe Wigs are involved.
Maybe Wigs.
Maybe Wigs.
We'll switch it up.
Maybe not.
We have to keep them on their toes, Valerie.
Yes, that's how I roll. And then subsequent weekends, 3 weekends in May, live, in-person field days of various lengths depending on the place. So we have Naples is hosting in Southwest Florida, Couplet Fern is hosting in Central Florida, and Magnolia and Sarracenia are hosting in the Panhandle.
Yeah.
So I've various listed these as Tallahassee. I've listed Mark's as Sanford, and then Naples, of course. But the field trips are going to be all over the place, and we'll have registration for each of those opening also as well at that time. And I will say the prices are pretty reasonable, so I hope that everybody decides to attend at least one field day in addition to the virtual conference. And I just wanted to go over some of my favorite lunch and learns, and I think many that have been underappreciated, specifically because I have them hidden behind the our unlisted playlists, so our members only playlists, and they haven't gotten a lot of love. So I'm going to put those links in the chats. But the first one is not underappreciated. It's Lily's Native Milkweeds of Florida. And
that was a wonderful presentation.
It's just
absolutely brilliant.
I've chaptered it out so you can get straight to the parts that you want. She goes over a lot of different species. Anyways, really, really good video. So I will drop that link in the chat. And then the next one is Little Italy's Sandhill Restoration by Rosie Mulholland.
Mulholland, yeah. So tell us, Valerie, why do you like Rosie's presentation so much, or her lunch and learn?
Well, I love Rosie, first of all. I mean, she's just...
Yes. Well, besides being a delightful individual, what about Little Italy was so exciting personally for you?
Okay, well, one, Little Italy is named about what shape it is on a map. And as a mapping person, that is just chef's kiss.
I love that. You're such a geek.
Yeah. So big fan of that. And then, of course, Rosie is one of the main reasons why we've been able to do so much restoration, because Little Italy is such a big site, big suitable site for the sandhills that we've rescued from. So you need cooperative land managers to help you do that. And you just can't have, that's the last piece in the puzzle, and you kind of have to have that ready by the time you're at least planning the rescue, right? You can't just be like, well, I'm going to take these plants and put them in somebody's backyard, and they just sit there for years. I mean, that's not really good plant rescuing. So
they shouldn't be in anybody's backyard. That is not the intent of a plant rescue under the FNPS banner at all.
Well, I mean, in pots in somebody's garage, for example.
Right, like a staging area.
Yes. Right.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, sometimes that's where they have to be staged, right? But
correct.
You don't want them living there indefinitely.
Forever.
And then they forget to water them, maybe, and
Yeah, and some of our backyards and front yards are absolutely not suitable for these scrub plants. For example, your front and backyard do not look like sand dunes, do they? So chances are your scrub rosemary will not grow there. Some of your rare grasses, even your wiregrass, will phase out because they are dependent on a particular plant community, and that's preserved in our FNPS mission statement.
That's right. And she goes over all of that and all of the restoration work that she's done in this site. So if you're interested in restoration, you're interested in plant rescue, she's a good person to contact. She's retired now and is a wealth of knowledge.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
That's great.
And then the last one I'm going to highlight is the Beautyberry research update with Pamela Soltis. So, you know, this is our only content from the Soltis lab. They rapidly publishing, you know, super prolific native plant focused Soltis lab. They just do loads of genomic research, and it's basically a genomic research update on Calocarpa beautyberries.
Wow.
So it was really cool.
So,
because they're a
for the
weird.
viewers, that's so cool. Just for the viewers, just share a highlight about what they found about Calocarpa, a beautyberry, American beautyberry.
It's been a long time since I watched it, but it's not really closely related to a lot of, I mean, it's a mint, right? So it's closely related to other mints, other bushy mints found in Asia and South America.
Wow.
Oh, that's awesome.
So anyways, I posted all those in the chat, and you guys
thank
can
you.
take it away.
Thank you. So, I mean, before I go into my presentation, the way we're going to do the Lunch and Learn today is to, I'm going to do a short presentation just about FNPS in general, so that everybody can get us, you know, that's new to us can get a little bit of an idea, and people that have been with us for a long time can get a refresher and see kind of what we're thinking about at the moment. And then Mark and I have, you know, some thoughts we'd like to chat about, but we'd love to hear from any of you. So if there's any questions, please do post them in the chat for us, and we'll do our best to answer, and we'll be, you know, honest and as we can be, and you know, so please do get in touch with us.
Yes, please.
But before I go into my presentation, I want to thank Valerie. This is an amazing achievement. To reach 100 Lunch and Learns is absolutely incredible. Yeah. I mean, you know, she started this, you know, off her own back, has developed the entire systems, and to keep something going like this, to find speakers, to arrange it, it takes a huge amount of work, you know, editing videos. It's very technical, which we're all grateful for because we're not all super technical. And you know, and to dream up ideas, to take people's ideas and run with them is just such a huge achievement, and we're so grateful for everything she's done for this program.
Agreed.
It was a short fix that has become a mainstay in, you know, in our programming, and that's remarkable.
Absolutely. And I'd like to just add, booking speakers, any of your viewers know, for live streams, and if you try to conduct one or try to facilitate one, it's not easy. You have to work with the speaker's schedule. And sometimes their openings are very short term. Like, they may reach out to Valerie and say, I'm free next Friday. Is there any availability? And then Valerie has to jump in and say, of course, we'd love to have you. This is a very desirable topic for our membership. Let me see how I can make that happen. So Valerie is particularly good about getting quality speakers, extremely sought after topics, and having it at the pleasure of not just FNPS members, but for the general public to be educated through such reputable sources. So a big congratulations.
Yeah, thank you, Valerie. Amazing. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to switch to my presentation. Hopefully everybody can see that. Valerie, that's working great. Okay, good. Excellent. So, so just to start out, Florida Native Plant Society, we have approximately 6,000 members, growing every day, which is very exciting. And obviously the ambition is to continue that growth. We have 33 chapters around the state and hundreds, probably thousands of volunteers. And we're going to get to talking about volunteers later, because it's such an important part of how we function. We only have 3 members of staff. You've seen 2 of them today, and then there's Lily, that's our North Florida person. You know, we'd love to grow our team. There's so much more we could be doing if we were able to grow our team. You can imagine what it takes to run an organization like this is considerable. So There's 3 of us. We have a few contractors as well, bookkeeping, admin, that kind of thing, and our amazing board of directors that give up a lot of time to work at overseeing the state affairs of FNPS. We have our committees: education, conservation, science, policy, communications, finance, landscaping, and council of chapters. And we encourage all our members who are interested to get involved with these committees. It's a great way to learn more about the society, but really to take action and to be involved in what's happening at a state level, which is pretty exciting.
Agreed.
Oh, my slide is not progressing. Why is it not? There we go. So I'll move on to our sort of main strands of what we work on. Conservation, preservation, restoration is obviously a key part of our programming, and each of our chapters is out there doing all of these activities, incidentally, every weekend, all kinds of activities, so many that it's hard for us at a state level to keep track of all of that stuff. So this is really just what the state does, what we do at the sort of core function. We have some key projects that are, some of them are grant funded projects, like our Dicerandra program and our Torreya program. Those are programs that, have come about over time and that staff spend time on. We're looking to develop those programs. We look for partners to work with to create new programs, but those are the things that those are the programs that we manage at a state level. We also, as part of the conservation programming, make grants, so conservation grants, and this year some roadside rescue grants, which are going to be new, and that's all managed within our conservation committee. So they're the people that oversee that function. We're also very lucky to be involved in land management reviews. So we work with our parks system, and we review the management plans for those parks. And then in 2023, we're also going to be introducing an internship program, which is a partnership with the Wildflower Foundation that we're really excited about. Very grateful to them for supporting us on. And we're going to be looking to recruit a couple of interns, hopefully over the summer, to start in the fall, and that will they'll be working with us on some of our other programs. So if you're interested, we're still building the internship program at the moment, but we'll be putting out information about that in the future. We also, a core part of what we do is around science research. We fund scientific research. So we do have a grant program. It's actually, there's information about it on our website. We received donations to our endowment fund, which is specifically for scientific research. And that's a really big part of what we're about, is really starting to is working with those researchers and funding that research. Our science committee manage that process, and what's going to be amazing, every year we get to hear from some of those grant awardees about the research they've undertaken, and I know there's some really interesting stuff that's going to be talked about at our conference, so they'll be presenting at our conference. And then also there's other sort of parts of that program. We work with lots of really interesting partners, so Atlanta Botanical Garden, for example, on maybe some of their research projects that they're working on and how we can support their work. And then through our conservation programs, we do collect and analyze data, which we work with our other partners to distribute. Education and landscaping. At the moment, our education and landscaping program is together, but they are quite sort of distinct areas of work. Education for us, and the way we share our knowledge and information and communicate with people about native plants and native plant communities is essential to our work. Valerie's already mentioned the annual conference is coming up. We're very excited about it. We've got the virtual element, which it was similar to last year, but with some really exciting speakers, so we're very excited about that. And then we've, really glad to have the in-person elements this year. So you'll be getting, anybody who's already a member will be getting an email about that later next week, about how you can register, and we will also be sharing that on our social media for anyone who's not a member. Encourage you obviously to join, but then to attend our conference, and you'll be able to learn more about our work. We have our lunch and learns. You're at one now. This is what it is. The Education Landscaping also has a landscape awards program, which again we'll be communicating about over the coming weeks and months. And that's a really exciting opportunity if you've got some native landscape that that's either a community project or an individual project that you're really proud of. There will be the ability to submit your project for an award, and we would love to shout about that for you, and the hard work and commitment that you've made to native landscaping. So so look out for that. The website has lots of great educational materials, and then we also have all our other materials that we circulate through various brochures at plant sales. We have a Palmetto, which is our great publication that goes out quarterly. There's a lot of ways that we try to educate, of course, our social media as well. But we know we can always do more. We always want to keep shouting. The more people that have that moment where they learn about the importance of native plants is the moment we know, we've got someone with us. I
also want to point out something to our non-members who may be viewing this. The Landscape Award, it is poised to become exceedingly popular. The Education Landscape Committee has timed this around October, which is Florida Native Plant Month. But most of the publicity that they're channeling and distributing is through the Palmetto, and that is a membership exclusive publication. So if landscaping and gardening with natives is so appealing to you, I really encourage you all to explore FNPS.org a little bit further. The membership portal is fnps.org/join, and join, because if you are joining to support Garden with Native Plants, which is becoming an extremely big trend, a lot of people are getting on board for birds, wildlife, pollinators, our local environmental health, water conservation, the lack of or the elimination of added fertilizer. These are all great reasons to join FNPS.org.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, good point. So the other area of work we have is around policy. We do work with a lobbyist in Tallahassee. Obviously in the state of Florida, it's important that we encourage the legislation to consider the types of policy that we think is important for our environment and for obviously for native plants, and that can be quite far reaching potentially, but we do try and keep focused on what really relates to our mission and what what's important to our members. We have an action alert group. If you're a member and you're not already signed up to this, please do contact us, and you can become part of that action alert group, where we provide a resource for people to be able to be notified of any upcoming legislative issues that they can support or represent at a state or local level. So that is already out there, and I think that's Valerie's going to put something in the chat about that. So she's indicating to me. We have a whole system.
Hello. Yes, we do.
Okay. But so it's a really important part of what we do, and it's probably something we don't shout about as much as we perhaps should. But working on that policy is incredibly important. Whether it is ensuring that that as much money as possible goes into supporting our partners as well, and the work that they do. There's lots of local interactions as well that we are working on right now to provide information about how to interact at a local level more effectively, there's guidelines for that on our website, and we'll be working with our chapters to sort of encourage that as well. So 2023, FNPS has been around for a long time. It's an incredible organization. I'm fairly new. I've been here for about 6 months now. And we're looking forward this year to build on that foundation to increase our impact. And so, what does that mean? There's such a great foundation already here. I need to help the organization. We all need to help the organization to do more with what we already have. We already know that we're doing great things, and it's my team and our chapter's role to shout about that and to communicate what we're already doing. We want to work harder to nurture our relationships with funders. That goes without saying, but with also obviously our members and with partners. It takes a lot of work to keep in touch with as many people as we do, particularly with a small team. And so we're trying to look at ways that we can grow that reach and have a real meaningful relationships with our partners. In the summer, we'll be working to create a new strategic plan, which will take us into the future, which we're really excited about. We're an organization that has a lot of opportunities in front of us. That's something we're not short of. But it's the hard part is figuring out how to manage
Indeed. that. How to choose, especially and stagger things tactically. Yeah, that is a big daunting task. But viewers, if you are a member, and based on what Lynda has said in the past slide, do choose to be part of a committee. That could be the solution that we're looking for, especially if you have the knowledge, skill, and abilities. And if you are a younger member and you're just starting out on your native plant journey, do not feel any of these committees are daunting. You have great leaders and great chairs of each committee. They'll be happy to take you under their wing. Simply observe for a few months before you find your stride. It's really important that committees become very robust in order for a robust strategic plan to roll out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I agree with what Mark's saying. Don't be intimidated. There are people from all backgrounds, an awful lot of people that just, either recently or not that long ago discovered native plants and what they can do for our environment. So there are people that are newcomers to this too, and we need people with all sorts of skills. If we need people that understand how to communicate, how to design, how to where things have worked in their local area. There's all sorts of transferable skills that we would encourage people to bring to us if you're able to. So there's a couple of things I did want to touch on. So one of the things that is really important about FNPS, and lots of organizations like to think that they're different. I've worked with lots of organizations, and ultimately, there's running an organization is fairly similar, similar challenges. But FNPS is very special in that our community is what we are. Our community, our volunteers, our members is absolutely fundamentally who we are. And that means that you have to embrace the differences between our community, you have to embrace the similarities, and you have to try and find that kind of common language as well. And I think, Mark and I, once I get finished with this little presentation, we'll talk. I think it'd be interesting to explore that idea a bit more. Communities have suffered a lot over the COVID years. People have been, not able to connect in the same way that they have in the past, and they are now wanting to reconnect, but we're not sure if it's the same way that it used to be. So those are all things that we're, and organizations like ours are exploring at the moment, and it's something that for us, it is impossible for us to do the work we do without our community. And, I've put on the presentation about who we are: plant nerds, gardeners, environmentalists, activists, scientists, conservationists, educators, nature lovers. I mean, the list goes on. We are made up of people from all sorts of walks of life, and And yeah, I think, you know, we're grateful to our community, but we know we need to, it's something you need to work hard to nurture. And so that's what we want to do. Volunteers, which, you know, form a really important part of that community. I can't express to you how important it is. And we've got great news, which is that in 2022, we had over 60,000 hours of volunteer time, which is just remarkable. So at the hourly rate that the state of Florida says that is, it's over $1.6 million, which is just amazing. It's a huge value. And of that, 44,000 hours were mission related. So that means people working out, doing educational programming, field trips, native landscaping, habitat restoration, conservation research, the mission, what we're actually seeking to do.
That's exactly.
Which is just incredible. You know, the team, us, the staff, you know, a lot of our time is spent on the sort of functional part of making the organization run, the operations, and we wish every day we were out doing those activities. You know, the mission is what we're here to do, but somebody has to make sure the lights stay on, and that's part of what we're, you know, the team is here to do. But so, you know, the sheer value on every level, not just financially, that you, our volunteers, have is really, like I said, can't be overstated. And we'll get to talking about volunteering. We know that there are national trends, although our figures are looking fantastic at the moment. There are national trends away from volunteering. It's becoming a real challenge to try and encourage people to volunteer. And so we want to hear from you about that, whether you do volunteer or don't volunteer. You know, we need to hear why you do and why you don't, and particularly from people who don't. You know, I can make guesses. You know, people are busy and have other commitments, and but you know, we need to learn about anything we can do to provide volunteer opportunities that are fulfilling and remove any barriers to that we can. So we're going to get into our chat, but you know, the sorts of things we'd love to hear about is, what would you like to see us do more of? What are the biggest challenges for native plants in your area? You know, we are a statewide organization, but every single area has its unique challenges, and we need to learn about those. What can we do more to raise our profile? We hear all the time that people don't necessarily know who we are, and the people that do love us, and we want to make sure that as many people as possible do learn about us. And you know, what do you enjoy being a member of FNPS? I've left our contact information up there for me and Mark. We're both willing to be contacted, ask us questions. But
yes, especially with number 2. Lynda, go back to your previous slide if you don't mind. I love these questions, Lynda. Thank you so much. But number 2, what are the biggest challenges for native plants in your area? That really strikes me as being something that it can reveal to us as an organization areas of opportunity. I really love that question a lot. So Valerie, if there are any questions, please float them over to us. And Lynda, you can leave our contact information as you previously did on the screen. But I'd like to touch on leadership a little bit. I think Lynda is a great leader. Lynda's leadership style is a little bit different from mine. Very welcoming, very accommodating, and she knows where we're similar is that she knows her mine, and so do I. My leadership style is where I discover, especially in our region, if a person likes to do a specific activity. And that actually leads on to a previous question that Lynda had, like, what if some of the activities that a chapter is giving you does not particularly suit your interest or your skill set? How do we accommodate you? How do we make room for you? How do we discover those opportunities? And that's the type of leader I particularly am, is I like to present opportunities in front of people that demonstrate skills that a chapter may not necessarily have. For example, a newsletter. our chapter does not have a newsletter. We have a pretty low website, but we finally found somebody that is interested in making a newsletter and has a computer science background. And now we finally have a newsletter. But it's those activities where people say, I'm more interested in this, and how can I contribute to FNPS through this outlet that interests me? That's the core of it all. Is that, and that's what separates FNPS from so many other organizations, is that we take the time to get to know our members, whether it be through chapters, whether it be through board committees or on the state level, and we ask them and we listen. Say, what exactly about this particular committee or activity appeals to you? And let me see if there's an opportunity, not just now, but maybe 3 months down the road, that I can remember you by and say, hey, here's a great, event or experience or something that may further your knowledge through continuing education that will take you and develop your progress within FNPS, as well as your journey with Florida Native Plants.
Thanks, Mark. Valerie, do we have any questions or comments?
Questions?
Yes.
We have rapid fire coming up.
Well, rapid fire is maybe a bit of a stretch, but we do have Deborah Curry is here. And
hi.
Hi, Deborah.
From Marion Big Scrub chapter. Wonderful.
Yes. And she says she would like to get hold of the contractors and builders and find a way to change the typical ground cover that they install.
Yes, and I mean that's something that we know obviously is a huge challenge, and that's something that comes up over and over again when we're talking. We obviously have our landscape committee, and that kind of sits in their area of work, but it extends to working with HOAs and other cities and other public sector organizations, as well as landscapers in general. We obviously look at conservation as well, but in terms of those sorts of landscape issues, it's a big challenge. We are in conversation with other partners as well that will work with us on that.
I also wanted to add to what Lynda is saying. It is a big and nuanced request, because, as many of you know, Florida is not uniform statewide. Some people live in wetland areas, more upland, flatwoods, prairie. I mean, like, development has kind of taken up different spaces across the state, and they have really mastered, they've tried to master, I should say, nature. Drained swamps, created new canals where canals never existed, excavated and developed new areas where probably development should not go, but that's the nature of where we live right now, is that development is rampant. Our soil profiles are different. What I can tell you is that the Education and Landscape Committee is trying to revamp the landscape ordinance for FNPS.org. So if you guys go to our resources tab, you'll see a landscape ordinance from, I think, 2008, or maybe it's 10 years old, but it is on the Education and Landscape Committee's radar this year to revamp it and produce something that you can take up to your city officials or your county officials and say, can you please adopt this? I do know in South Florida, we have a particular chapter that was very successful, Palm Beach County chapter, where they utilized the landscape ordinance and actually required within that ordinance 60% or more of Florida native plants in their public setting, which is great. And of course, they're probably prioritizing South Florida natives rather than things that you see up in your neck of the woods, Deborah. So getting back to your question, I feel a landscape ordinance plan at least may be useful. That could actually get the conversation started on the government platform, especially when these new developments are occurring.
I turned my mic off for everybody, so you couldn't hear my dog snoring or any other background noise, but now they couldn't hear what I just said. So Suzanne has a pretty technical question, Suzanne Kateli from Brevard County. She says, we need to place our conservation program in the Florida Wildlife Corridor program. Brevard County is not on the map. Why not? So I'm going to need to pull up some maps to demonstrate this. So if you guys could address something else for some time, and then I will be able to address this question.
Yes, you do. Lynda, do you have any questions that we can discuss while Valerie pulls up some visuals for Ms. Kennedy's question in the chat box?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I did want to ask, so, you know, part of what I wanted to learn a bit about actually was with you, Mark, and what it's like to be president of FNPS. So I know that's sort of aside from, you know, our core work, but it is really important to know that, I think, that, you know, what you have to do in order to be president, what you think the, you know, the key skills are. We're going to be out soon looking for nominations for new board members potentially, and yeah, so what does it take to be president, and what's it like?
I think that's a great question, and
why did you do it? You know?
Oh, I wanted to. I was one of those gluttons for punishment that said I absolutely wanted to do it, and I think Shirley Denton had called me once, and it was a very brief conversation, which is unusual for Shirley because we do talk at great length. But she just asked me point blank and said, "Do you want to be president?" And my answer was yes. And
that's great.
There was no further explanation behind it, but she said, "Okay, thank you." And you know, it's for our viewers and for any potential president-elect out there, I want to advise you something. As the chair of the board, your job is really to be the person that keeps the ship steady. Each committee has different responsibilities. Each chair of that committee has a different focus or a different personality. Some are very technical, some are very specific in a political way. For example, Gene, I know, is watching this. Gene's emails are always very specifically crafted, and he's requiring a very specific response that is equally clear. But communications with Shirley Denton, usually they are very long because she has a lot of details to go over with somebody that has a query. But as a chair of a board, you need to understand how to work with a myriad of different, not just personalities, but what their responsibilities are, and just keeping the ship going forward. My presidency has been where I am relying more on committees choosing what direction policy and legislation is taking, communications is taking, the Educational Landscape Committee is taking. And my job is to be basically the middle ground where all these different committees can come together and produce their report. If there's any added discussion, if there's any sort of cross-pollination that needs to occur between committees, like one committee's task actually affects or may be of interest to another committee. And seeing all those fine, nuanced overlaps that occur throughout the year. Sometimes committees can be quite engrossed in their tasks. For example, the awards, the landscape awards. It's going to be just a super popular response. I can just assure our viewers that because this particular committee has put a lot of work and a lot of foresight into their publicity, ramping up to October when they will unveil the winners of the Landscape Award. But it's important to see how that affects Marjorie Proctor, who's our in-house artist, how that affects applicants, how that affects chapters that in the past historically have nominated their own demonstration garden. So it's important for a president and for other committees to actually help a specific committee in their task by showing them some of the aspects or angles that they may overlook just while they're engrossed in that particular responsibility.
Yeah. And I can see that. And I think, being the kind of connector between different programs is really important. When we talk about trying to do more with what we have with our existing resources, the best way that you can do that is look for opportunities within. If somebody's already, I think, like you say, somebody can be focused on a particular task at hand and don't have the time to put their head up and look around. And by having, you in your position and me in my position, we're able to see the connections that can either take what might be a small project and make it much bigger, or can see that how we can link across and share.
Link across and be more practical and pragmatic, saying, just like you mentioned, there's a lot of opportunities out there, but if we drive I drive a Toyota Corolla. If I drive my Toyota Corolla 500 miles an hour, chances are it's going to discombobulate on I-4. It's going to like come apart. That car was not meant to drive that fast, right? So we have to pace ourselves. Lynda has given some excellent metrics. This is great news. 6,000 members are close to it. Never happened before. So we're actually inching forward. We're making progress. Great. But in order for that progress to be sustainable, we have to not bite off more than we can chew. There's another, I know Valerie has a visual ready. I can just tell by her, as Lynda put it, her mannerisms. So I can tell that she's ready to answer Ms. Kennedy's question. But I wanted to point out something that Lynda and I both share. Lynda does it a little bit better, in my opinion, but she has people looking up to her for strength, for confidence, for peace, saying it's all going to be okay. Everything's going to work out in the end. So people can look up to a leader and look at them as a source of not strength, but peace. I love the word peace because everything is going to work out fine in the end. Try not to get overwhelmed. Try not to overstress. And if you have a leader that you can look up to and say, hey, he or she has so much on their shoulder. They're doing so much good work, not only in their region, but also on the state level. If he's holding it together, or if she's holding it together with everything that is going on a daily basis, I can glean some inspiration from that.
Yeah, thank you. And I think, that is hard to do. And I think, you've touched on us growing and encouraging growth. I want to, just be clear, and this is talking personally rather than, on behalf of the organization, that, the whole reason for growth is to have a bigger impact. We're not empire builders. We're not here just to grow for the sake of growth. It's all about what can we do for our native plants. And so, I'll loop back to Susan's question now, yes. Because I think that is, that's important. And, you things like the wildlife corridor, I mean, it's hugely significant. And, it's easy for us in our day-to-day to get focused on particular projects that are right in front of us. And when I talked about building relationships with partners and seeing how we can do more with what we have, I think that's a good example of that. But Valerie, I don't know if you are able to sort of speak more to that. I know that, if you can bring that up. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so you can see our faces big. There we go.
Okay, so we're going to be in a little bit soapbox. Let me get it and stand on it. So let's talk about land conservation. I know everyone has been listening for quite a while already, but if you could just take a deep breath and prepare to listen a little bit more. So when you go to conserve land, why do you choose which land to conserve? So the state of Florida has had a land conservation program for many, many years, successful land conservation program with P2000 and Florida Forever. Those land programs have criteria for ranking what land should be preserved. A number of very wonderful criteria not always. The things that get protected sometimes have not been exactly the things that are at the top of the list in terms of ranking, because as you may imagine, there may be some politics involved in the process. However, there are still criteria, and that's important. So recently, there's been a lot of buzz about the Florida Wildlife Corridor and how it's fantastic and people are walking it and there's animals that can move. Fabulous, okay, so it's connected. Okay, so connectivity is important, particularly for large mammals. It's important for plants. It's an important criteria. It is a criteria for land conservation, but that is only one of the criteria that was considered in Florida Forever. And in my very humble opinion, the Florida Wildlife Corridor is like the big shiny new object that is sucking all the air out of the room and saying, look at this, look over here, conservation over here. But there's a lot more to conservation than big, wild, and connected. And just because something is cut off with some development, or just because something is not connected, doesn't mean it doesn't have rare plants on it. Doesn't mean it doesn't have rare animals on it. And so what happened was this bill was passed by the legislature. You can go look at the history of why that bill was passed by the legislature. There's lots of really good news about that. There was some money involved. So have a look at the history of that bill. And then have a look at this map. So here's Florida. I'm putting this over you guys, by the way. So here's Florida. Here is Brevard County. Well, we'll stay zoomed out. Here's Florida Wildlife Corridor 2021. You'll see this map, this layer is labeled Florida Wildlife Corridor 2021. So that is a big yellow thing that does not include all of Florida, right? I mean, it's not all of Florida. It is a certain set of maps. And these, the Florida Wildlife Corridor, is from a set of GIS data developed by Tom Hochter at the UF Geoplan Center, who's presented at several of our conferences and has presented Lunch and Learns and will present at our upcoming conference. He's a GIS guy, and he basically took all available ecological data for the state of Florida, separated into categories, and ranked all the land in the state of Florida by priorities for different things. For example, water recharge, wetlands quality, rare plants, rare animals, ecological greenways network. Okay, so this layer, the ecological greenways network, is what the Florida Wildlife Corridor is based on, but not all. So okay, so you can say, okay, this piece of land, this is the last little bit, it's a fantastic wildlife corridor, that's priority 1. Oh, okay, this land on the outside of it, that is priority 2. Oh, this land over here that's maybe swampy, it's a little hard for panthers to walk through, that's priority 3. These are not real examples, but. So I'm turning on the Ecological Greenways Network map. So this is all of them, all of the Ecological Greenways Network, which, if you remember what I just said, priority 1 through 3 are what the legislation deemed as the Florida Wildlife Corridor. So just because there's land in your county that you see as ecologically significant, or you think might need to be connected, doesn't mean it's in the wildlife corridor. The wildlife corridor does not take into account biodiversity, or water recharge, or high quality wetlands, or rare plants, or rare animals. It's literally just connectivity, which is not bad, but you have to recognize that it's not just some sort of definition of conservability of land. Okay, so here's the Ecological Greenways Network. So if we zoom in, we can see that Brevard County does have a lot in all of the priorities, priority 1 through 5. So down here, we got some priority 5, a little bit of priority 3, a lot of priority 1 here on the west side of the county, and at Kennedy Space Center, a lot of priority 3. Okay.
Yeah, so there is wildlife corridor priority in Brevard.
Right, but if you look at 2021, right, just 1 through 3, it's what's in the yellow. But see, the thing is, a lot of that is already conserved. So if you turn on the gray layer, is already conserved. That's what you have. So there's still some non-conserved. We can turn on rural and family lands projects. Doesn't look like there's any. I wouldn't expect there to be any in Brevard. And we could turn on Florida Forever boundaries. Okay, so we do have some Florida Forever projects potentially here in Brevard County.
Yeah, and not to dig deeper into this a little too much, because I think the purpose of this lunch and learn is to inspire leadership, inspire volunteerism, inspire the need to join the FNPS movement. But I think what Valerie has touched on is exceedingly important. The corridor is a trendy word, right, Valerie? Right now, it's the shiny new bauble that everybody is in love with. 10 years ago or 20 years ago, the word conservation was the same mountain. Nowadays, even though I don't have any gray hairs on my head, I've been around the block a little while to notice that people need things to get excited about. People need a buzzword to get excited about. Resiliency is the new buzzword right now. The corridor, of course, is the buzzword. Gardening with native plants is becoming a trend. It would be pretty exciting to see native plant communities, right, Lynda, becoming a trend, because we would love nothing more than to see how people get really nuanced and really crafty with understanding native plant communities, because then you're understanding a family of plants, a matrix of plants.
Yeah, and if I can interrupt, I think one of that is one of our challenges, though, is that when people hear a message, they want to hear something that's simple, and so a corridor is a simple message. I can visualize it, get it, see a picture of a panther. It all makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think, part of our big challenge is, what we're talking about actually is a very simple message in many ways, but the charm is with the intricacies. The charm and the way that our community is works is that we're people that like the detail. And so when we talk to people that are new to this, we've got to really try and capture that simple message, because I think we've talked about landscapes, people's yards, and we're talking about the wildlife corridor, mm-hmm. and we're talking about politics, and we're all of these different things which are all important, and they are all what makes up FNPS, but it's a very complicated message. I talk to people every day that particularly about invasives, for example, they assume that everything isn't native is invasive, and so that's a message that is people are simplifying in their mind. We say, using the word native, they assume the opposite is invasive. They don't they're trying to simplify the message for themselves. And so, that communication's about what we do and what's important, and the delight that can be found in the detail. We're all people. I think plant people in general, when you go out and hike, you're not just walking through the environment, you're stopping and looking at things, the whole way along. We're detail people. And so I think, that is who our community is, and that's amazing. But it does make it difficult when we're talking to the media or people, at a larger scale. We need some of those simple messages that cut through all of the detail, because not everyone's like us, and if we want to get our message across, and that's one of the reasons that the corridor concept is so successful. Popular. It's very simple message to understand.
I think our program lines that focus on rare plant conservation and data collection really help our cause. That's also something that's very clear. It's an endangered plant, and then you draw them into a story saying Florida is extremely biodiverse when it comes to plant life, and then they want to learn a little bit more about native plants in particular. I think our calling card, speaking of trends right now, is landscaping with native, and kind of speaks into Deborah Curry's initial question as well. How do we, we can't really stop development. We have to meet the needs of our people, but how can they garden smart? How can they actually understand the plants on their land, the existing plants on their land? Mm-hmm. And that's an easy avenue for us to just educate them based on the cards in our deck, the fnps.org/plan, how to get involved in your local chapter, how to understand Broward County's plans are not the same as Seminole County's plans, and how they are similar in some ways. What makes the Panhandle so special, and why is Sarracenia chapter named after a pitcher plant? Well, chances are because they have a huge representation of pitcher plants out there, guys, and it's spectacular. I don't know, Lynda. I think it's rather ironic that the most rural parts of Florida are the most rich when it comes to plant representation and plant community.
Well, yes. I mean, yeah, that goes without saying.
That's right.
Yeah.
So folks, I mean, if you're listening, this is a great time to, it's a new year, it's a new start. I'm sure there are many listeners out there that are policy inclined or landscape inclined. Take that first step. Join FNPS, fnps.org/join. Get involved. And Lynda and I are always here to answer any questions that you may have. Bless you, Valerie. And I know we're kind of coming down to the wire. Lynda, I do not want you to distract from me. Any parting words?
No, I mean, I just reiterate what Mark says. I personally am learning every day, trying to get out, see as many parts of the state as I can, meet as many of our chapters as I can, and really to start shouting more about what we're already doing, so that we can do more, because the more we can communicate it, the more we can grow, the more we can do. So but we're very grateful to our volunteers and to our members. This is a ground up organization. It's grown organically, and that's what makes it so special, and we'll continue to foster that growth. So but yeah, and I just want to reiterate again to thank Valerie for everything she does.
Happy 100.
Happy
100, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you both. Have a good weekend, everybody.